Hello. I hope you all had a great lunch and a great break. And we are here for a session which is a little bit different than the ones we had so far. My name is Paulina Florjanowicz. I'm a member of the board of NEMO. And I have a great honor to be moderating this afternoon's panel. And so far, we talked a lot of well-being that many of us understand or perhaps misunderstand as the need to be happy. Personally, I strongly oppose to this concept that we must be happy. I think that it can actually cause a lot of mental misunderstanding, as many people who do not feel 100% happy think that something might be wrong with them. But there is another side of that coin, those really traumatized who seek help also in museum. And this trauma might have different origins or causes, be individual or collective. So our guests today are Jolien Posthumus from the Netherlands, trauma therapies and mindfulness consultant for museums. And Jolien was also appointed the first program manager of mental health in the 2022 EMEA winner Museum of the Mind, and she also is the project leader and runs the Museum on Prescription project. So welcome here today. And our second guests working as a duet are Maryna Bohush and Yurii Horpynych, both from the National Museum of the History of Ukraine in the Second World War. Maryna is a senior research officer and acting head of Department for Exposition and Exhibition Work, and Yurii is the deputy of Director General. Welcome. Before I give you the floor, I would like to say that this session is personally very important to me, because I come from Poland, and so far, based on the studies, we are the most traumatized society in Europe, still due to the trauma of the Second World War. Study from about 10 years ago showed that up to 38% of then living World War II survivors in Poland have PTSD symptoms, while in other European countries, it usually is no more than 2%. So, and this is also an intergenerational trauma that goes on to successive generations. Actually, today there is another conference opening in Warsaw, Poland, in the Museum of the History of Poland, entitled Country of Prolonged Grief. So we are very much into the topic that we will be discussing today. And many of our museums, which are also memorials, landmarks of the most horrific moments in 20th century history, which is the result of the two totalitarian regimes that we experience, deal with this topic on daily basis. So I would like to invite Jolien to give us a scientific background on what trauma actually is, how and perhaps why to deal with it, why is it so important, and how can museums sign up in this process and help in the healing. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping that my clicker is working. Good to re-meet everybody at the beginning of this day and now coming to the close of this day. And I want to start by giving you the same invitation as I did this morning, to take care as best as you can for yourself, especially now diving into trauma, maybe some personal relationality to that. So I go back to my first slide. Yes. So when we talk about trauma, we don't per se talk about the events that is happening. Trauma has much more to do with the process that is happening in our own body. The moment that we experience an event and our body was not able to process that properly, it can leave marks in the body that causes suffering, maybe for one lifetime or several lifetimes, as you have mentioned. And those marks can be triggered at any point, which make us come into a flight, fight, or freeze mode. So there are various types of trauma. We can talk about war trauma, we can talk about sexual trauma, interpersonal and collective trauma. And it's maybe good to have an understanding of the trauma can arise in two ways. It's either something happening too fast, too sudden, or lasted too long, which you could not cope, or it was the absence of something there, something that made you feel safe, made you feel heard and seen, or was supporting for you at that moment. The moment that we have absence when we experience this horrific moment, this also can involve trauma. We know at least 70% of all people worldwide will at least experience one traumatic event in our lifetime. So most likely one of these days they will step into our art and gallery spaces and memorial centers. So how can we respond wisely and skillfully to that? In my work, what I do is always want to come back into something that everybody can relate to come back to sort of a common ground, something common humanity where we can relate to. And talking about trauma, this might be our window of tolerance. When we talk about mental health and our well-being, it has, like you have said, not so much to do with are you happy? It has much more to do with our capacity as human beings to having a mindful breather there. Thank you. Thank you so much. So it has much more to do with our capacity as human beings to turn towards both the most painful and difficult things in life and still see the beauty. And having the capacity as human beings to do both. And living with trauma, it's quite the same. It's knowing that at one point you might be triggered again. Can you carry and hold yourself in that moment and still see the glimmers, as trauma expert Deb Dana calls it? Those glimmers that our automatic nervous system sees the smile of somebody else's face or feels the feet on the ground, that helps us ground in that moment. So when we talk about mental health, well-being, resilience, building up resilience, and trauma growth, it has much to do with that capacity to widening, holding life and all that it will give us, and keeping that sort of balance. And we as human beings can do several things in order to widen our capacity as both to balance that capacity. The first three I will come back to a little bit later on the talk, but here you see reconnecting with life, with others, inhabited language to express yourself, meeting your obstacles and welcoming those moments of awe and joy. Isn't this what museums already do? Day in, day out, just by opening your doors without doing anything. You're already opening up the space to do this. Art and collection has been doing it since ever we are here. Throughout centuries, throughout religions, throughout cultures, art has the role that literally gives us something that we can turn towards, we can stay near, and that can soothe us, that can comfort us, that can make us not feel alone. So art already does this, and artists do as well. For the people who will visit Aarhus on Wednesday, this will be your puzzle to look on the wall. So artists help us to remind it's about having the capacity to see the light and to see the dark. So we have our museums, we have our obstacles, but how do we turn towards in order to widen our capacity? That's where I welcome in the mindfulness practice. It's a 25,000-year-old practice, but in today it's evidence-based, touched by research, and it's the actual practice of turning towards, like your experience this morning, towards your inner world, meeting everything that is there, the things that you like, things that you maybe not so much like about yourself, and creating the space to welcome it all. And that practice we can take when we step into the world. And when we cultivate this over a longer time, equanimity can grow. And equanimity is this capacity of holding life with a balanced mind and heart. So knowing that, it's not a very big step to coming into a trauma-informed museum. So that's what I hope to support museums in doing. All museums who want to delve a bit into how they can welcome their audience in a trauma-sensitive way, but a little bit more those museums addressing collective trauma, loss, and injustice. So I do this for museums throughout all the layers of the museums: consulting, resourcing, training, supervision. And like is mentioned this morning, what I hope to do is not to add something new that the team has to do, but pick those things that we just already do day in, day out. And by getting a bigger, better understanding of trauma, to how can we do what we already do with just a little bit more knowledge and wisdom, so it not becoming an extra task that you have to do. Tapping into emotional labor, doing your work and talking about day in, day out about personal stories. I hope this will be something on tomorrow's topics as well. And what I do, I create those resources, this mindful arts interventions with mindfulness in museums. So I worked in the psychology care for a long time. What I do is I translate the healthcare intervention into an arts intervention, supporting people, everybody who steps into the museum. So the trauma-informed meditation I did this morning, I did not mention trauma once, but it wasn't a trauma-informed practice. So I want to come back a bit to those three things that we do to find grounding as people. And our senses are an evidence-based way to directly ground ourselves. Our senses help us directly to come out of feeling overwhelmed, or if we ruminate all the time. And this is the same for trauma. Here you see the amygdala, which you might call the brain's alarm system. It gets its information via two ways: a very direct way without our control, and a second way which enters some information. And this scans all day long, is there something we need to come into an action? And then from there we'll go into this fight, flight, or freeze mode. And I think we all know, last week we saw this lifelike example that alarm systems don't always work the way that supports us most. I don't say this to be harmful, to make fun what happened in the Louvre. I actually think it is a lifelike experience that we can relate, that alarm systems don't always work in the best way that supports us. And this is exactly what happens with trauma. It will trigger, it will do something out of your control. And the most helpful way when somebody immediately goes into feeling overwhelmed or feeling panicked is asking somebody, can you see my face? Can you feel the feet on the floor? Or can you see something here that you like? So our senses are one of the most direct ways to bring somebody back, and museums feast our senses. So to support our visiting-facing staff, just by giving them that knowledge, if they have somebody in the tour and they see them getting a bit of restless, it would be just a simple question. Are you still okay? Can you feel your feet? Is there something here you like? So these are some of the ways that we can support our team. The second thing, reclaiming your voice, reclaiming your agency, one of the most important things in the trauma healing path, both individual as collective. In 2002, I had the pleasure to be welcomed by the amazing Eva Koppa, sitting here as well, joining the educational seminar here on Utøya we spent one day. And Utøya is the place where Anders Breivik came onto the island in 2011, did his terrorist act and killed 69 people that day. Here you see the Hang Huset, which is the place where most people were killed. And they came for 6 months together with the people that survived that day, with the relatives, but also with artists and with architects, to see how can we reclaim, not only personally, but how can we support our community with reclaiming our islands. Here you see the Hang Huset on the window display, you see the big pillars immediately on the glass. 69 representing each person that was killed that day on the islands. Surrounding, you see 381 poles, like a big hug, like a big protection wall, representing all the survivors of that day. And when you come up to the island, you come with the ferry that Andres Streifik took. You see the most beautiful, idyllic island. It's absolutely beautiful. And you can sense the horrific things that has happened there. And I think it's still one of the most beautiful places I've seen that holds both horrific pain and holds love, holds hope, and is now day in, day out to see how they can take that story further into workshops for children and contributing to this collective healing. One other thing that they did, I thought was really inspiring. What we know from people enduring trauma, some parts of the brain are not active during those events, and at that moment our memory shuts off, so we literally can't remember everything. And what our minds will do the rest of our lives, will try to see if they can find all the puzzle pieces to get our story complete. That's just what we do. It's what we call fragmentation in trauma healing. What they did, they picked something very ordinary from museums, creating a timeline. They asked everybody in the community to send in the pictures, all the materials, and they created a timeline in the exposition. The trauma therapist came in and they actually helped the people who were there that day but were not able to get the story straight. And just by collecting everything, it was a full, complete story. So they can integrate that and come into the next healing phase. Your timeline that you put on that wall is an intentionally acknowledgement of a story. So it is supportive for everybody stepping into your museum. Only your timeline is already trauma informed, if it's done properly, of course. So to sum up, I will come to a close. I see the time, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, if we have learned anything from trauma healing, we as human beings, we don't heal alone. We fundamentally need somebody else or something else to stay with us. To stay with us when we previously were left alone or were alone. Somebody will stay with us when we turn towards the pain, when we turn towards suffering. And of course, this can be a person who is a trauma therapist in one situation, but this can also be somebody on the street who will give you a smile. It can be something. It can be nature. It can be animals. It can be your stuffed animals. It can be your art. It can be your museum and your collections. Your museum matter. Your objects and collections matter. You matter in trauma healing. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a lot of food for thought.
I know, too much. Sorry.
And now it's time for our guest from Ukraine, who will give us an overview of the massive transition the museum had to go through since 2022 and since the full Russian-scale invasion on Ukraine started. Among other things, is that you brought art therapy and museum therapy to another level, inviting veterans, defense forces, staff, and their families to your museum. So please, the floor is yours. Present your case.
Thank you very much. I try to be briefly because I understand that everyone is tired now. Our presentation is in run now. I want to show some activities which we have done. And to be briefly, we started on the beginning of this year But idea was born in August 2024 when me and Maryna, like curators of one of our exhibition, War in Warsaw Perspective, decided to make the parallel program for our exhibition. And in after the months, I met one of chiefs of police, our police ministry, and he asked me to if their guys can go to our museum and to see exhibition. But I proposed him maybe it will be better to see exhibition and to make some activities and to make some rehabilitation for these guys, because we understand that we civilians understand that it's very hard to be on the war, to be the part of this war. So we call our presentation and our activities From Memory to Recovery, the role of the War Museum in supporting war-affected communities. So our first steps were in January, as I told previously, and our pilot program, rehabilitation through the culture. It was our first group, and it was very touching because we have 2 sessions with psychologists of police department, and they told that it's not allowed to talk about war, about weapons, about that events. They were with psychologists, and we were nervous a lot because it was our first experience, and it was we don't know how it runs, how to speak with those people. I have, and Maryna and all Ukrainians have a lot of relatives, friends who are on the front lines. But when you see people who were wounded or suffering from these activities, it was very difficult. And our first master class was like it was painting with this group of guys, and also excursion, like to change some activities. And when we met them in our museum, the first thing they asked if we have seen the tanks over there on the hill, and can we move there to see them, to touch them, to find out some information, and we understand that everything will be fine. And we start to work with them on our exhibition War in Warsaw Perspective. We have a lot of modern artists, and one of them, Maria Lubinska, was the first person who take part in this masterclass, because her husband is veteran. He was wounded during the Kiev operation in 2022, and he was also on rehabilitation, and she understands how to work with such people, and it was our first successful experience. Our aim is to help people and communities to connect with after trauma. And you can see different groups, and this guy on the photo with the phones in olive jacket, he was also one of the first groups. His name is Ruslan, and he is from Donetsk region. He's police officer, and he, from start of full-scale invasion, he became the part of our army, and he was wounded in Donetsk region in 2024. And in few months, when he get well, he returned as a part of our police ministry with a group, and he became his role is like assistant of ministry, one of the generals, to make deal to work with veterans. And it was amazing because he was the brightest person in that group. All of them were very bright and very positive. It was the most of them are more positive than regular people, and he was very funny. He joked every time. He asked questions. He was very active. And when he returned, it was the best moment in my life when he returned with this group on the first photo. He was like the assistant. He was like curator of this group in his new job. Our mission to support physiological, emotional, social, value basis recovery through culture, art, and the museum space. And on the first picture on the photo, you can see our exhibition, War in Warsaw Perspective. It was created in 2024, as I mentioned before. And the next one is a space where we work with, those group was National Guard and different units of police ministry. They are serving also in army. And it was maybe third or fourth our art therapy session, and there was one person, you can see it on the background. He was just sitting on the chair doing nothing, and I saw that he was in depression. He was very depressed. I asked him maybe he wants to paint something or not on that topic but something else. He said, no, I'm just sitting here because I don't want to be in hospital. It's very boring. He said, okay. I proposed him to show our museum, maybe some excursion, short excursion. He said, no, I saw it previous time, I don't want. And in this group was the other person who was serving in Kherson region, in Kherson district. There also wars there. And he started to chat with me and told that he haven't seen his family for 3 years from the beginning of full-scale invasion. And he started to ask some questions. And I proposed him, if he finished to paint, we can move to our expositions to see something, to chat. Maybe he will have some questions. And those guy came with us. He said, okay, I just go. I don't want to see it. It's painting is for girls. And he go with us. And we start to chat in exposition. I told that some of these exhibits take part in Battle for Kyiv in 2022, and it was very funny to see the exhibits on the streets of our city, like part of our struggling. And this guy started to chatting with us. He started to ask some questions, and in result, we became chatting very well. And I feel very, I don't know, I'm not psychologist, I'm just art criticism, but it was very interesting that it's like one person and another person, we don't know each other, but we get well in museum. In some topics, and he started to talk me about his life, his experience. We don't talk about his trauma, exact why he's in hospital, because he have arms and legs. It was okay. He was look like healthy person, but I understand that maybe there is some other injury, but it was okay. And it was also a great experience for me and for our colleagues, because we understand that things we start are very important, and it's very important for us, because in wartime we can help them. We can help these guys. They understand that they are needed in society, that they can return, and it's okay, because most of them don't understand that they are needed in society, and for what they should return. It's better to be on the war with their brother in arms. Principles of our works is trauma-informed approach, do not harm. We have 2 specialists now who are working with these guys. Human centeredness and agency, ethics and deniation of memory, and culture as a resource integrativity. It's our principles. And on the picture, we can see the quest for children of military persons and veterans of Russian-Ukrainian war. It was in July of this year. And we start to do different activities, not only with militarians, but also with different with their families, with children, with persons who removed from the regions where the battles, and persons who lost their homes, their families, all their stuff, and now they're living in like safe places in Ukraine. There is no safe places, but so like okay. Areas of works, physical and cultural programs. It's the things that I told previously on the beginning of my speech. It was programs. We start collaborations with documentalists, with artists, with volunteers, and different other activities. Work with museum staff. We start my department of rehabilitation. They start working with our staff to make them better in communication with militarians, veterans, and their families, children, and etc. Educational and research direction. Now our team take part in United Nations Organization initiative in Ukraine. It's universal design, courses of universal design, and we want to make our museum more universal, more inclusive, and it's very important for us. Culture of inclusivity, accessibility, and trauma-informed instruction. That was I talking about previously. And we have courses of animation. It's one of our artists and designers, and they are making cartoons with militarians and children. It was one of the best activities. Our guys have a program from 5, 7, 10 studying master classes, and then they have result a cartoon. And in future, my goal and my colleagues' goal is to make maybe exhibition or something like this dedicated to activities of all these persons, all these people. So peer-to-peer approach. It's one of our volunteers. Her name is Svetlana. Her husband it's a first Ex Libris Linocut workshop. First picture, and I met her husband like a volunteer. He was volunteer for our museum, for our army, and his wife is designer, and she proposed to make such a Linocut workshop, and it was successful. We have about 5 sessions of this Linocut masterclass and workshop, and it was very interesting. Also, we make studies and lections for militarians by militarians, and on the next photo you can see the master class from the general psychologist of 12 brigade of National Guard, Azov. It's called Azov, very famous brigade, which was fighting in Mariupol in 2022. And it was very interesting to see how militarians can work with militarians on the civilian area. So I will finish, and right now on the October our results are number of events about 38. It's different master classes, events with militarian. Now we are in process of making a evening of poetry with there will be one of the guests will be a soldier who was on our rehabilitation, and during excursion he started to read poems, his own poems, and it was very touching. His guys, his brothers in arms, who was with him, were very surprised, and some women who are like social workers who are supporting and work with those guys were crying, and it was very touching. And I proposed him, I remember you. I tell him, we start to chat in messengers, and he sent me some his poems. And few weeks ago, I called him and told that Yurii, we have such idea to make an evening of poetry of militarians and civilian poetry about war in Ukraine. And he told me, okay, but I have one problem. I'm on the front line. So now we are thinking maybe it will be like some Zoom or something like this. Yeah, it's very strange because I chat with him and I heard blow-ups on the background, and I tell, okay, one more I will tell, take care. Tell me if you need something on the front line, your brothers in arm need something, we will help. And now he will be the part of our evening of poetry, and it's also very important for us. Also, we have number of participations involved. There is about 596 persons from the beginning of this year. And now we are making about 13 events per month by our museum staff. And I think it's not so bad result, but it's not enough. And also we have, as I told previously, we have master classes and trainings for our museum staff, and the people who receive trainings, there are about 137 persons now. So I give a floor for Maryna. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Sorry for my English. It's not so good.
Okay, I just want to add some insight from our work to Yurii's speech as a creator of some museum project and as a person who mostly work with architects and designers in our museum. First of all, and everything is very interesting for me, I noticed that traumatic history spaces is really reliable spaces to rehabilitation work. As Yurii previously said, the most tours we make for these affected communities of veterans, militaries, their families, etc., took in place in our exposition. And the museum also have some art exhibition. As also Yurii said, the War Inverse Perspective, it's a great artistic exhibition where we talk about the wars through the metaphors, through the artistic forms. But the most popular exhibition is exhibition which is the most war objects concentrated, which is the most war stories concentrated. So that's why I noticed traumatic history is reliable for this kind of work in our museum. That's why for me as a curator it's a big insight, because it means we didn't need to change our contact to processing the content about the war a lot. So we can just say the truth, we can just show truth about the war, and it's still reliable for the most part of our audience. So this first insight. And the second, maybe I would say a few words about our ambitions and plans. Because it's also about our work as exhibition department. So the first, we have like two separate plans, general plans, big plans for this kind of work. First of all, we want to develop and spread in our rehabilitation area through the spreading communities, develop new forms, method maybe new practices for our audiences. And the second, it's about like more physical spaces, like architects, project, etc. We already have like a lot of spaces in our museum. We also have experts in architects form, in design, etc. But we try to find, and we do it every day, supporting and new possibilities to develop and to create a new special, maybe space for this part of our work. And I think it's very important for us because it's not about like conceptual developing, it's also about physical developing of the museum spaces, and it also about accessibilities in our museum. We are like a Soviet form building, something like that, and we need a lot to change in our museum. So that's why we're here. That's why we are open to every new possibilities, to every new collaborations, etc. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not here. What?
Thank you. That was very interesting and inspiring. I had to cross out a few of my questions because we want to have questions from the audience as well. But I have to, in both of your, all three presentations, there was a lot of, I think, common denominations. You talked about the need of feeling needed. And the keyword that I remembered, especially from your presentation, Jolien, was reclaiming. And I would like to dive into this a little bit. Why we should not avoid dealing with the traumas? And can you elaborate on this from the scientific perspective? Why our minds, our brains, our bodies, why do we need to deal with the most difficult moments in our lives?
As people or as museums or both?
I think as both.
As both, okay. Well, my true answer would be that you cannot command for somebody to deal with trauma. Not from somebody personally. It's a personal choice when we decide to turn towards, and for museums as well, I think. But what we see when people are becoming, I don't know, brave enough or strong enough or feel well supported by their surrounding, stepping into trauma healing, we have the possibility to reconnect with ourselves, reconnect with the people we meet, reconnect with the world. And for us as human beings, this is vital. We'll not survive alone. Just biologically, we will not survive. We fundamentally need to contact with others. And dealing with trauma most likely will make people withdraw. So we all know the moment that we get really angry or get mad or feel overwhelmed, we might go into the fight or the flight mode. But for people dealing with trauma, our automatic nervous system immediately goes to freeze or fawn. It will just like withdraw you with everything. So you physically will not be capable to connect with the world around you. So it's somebody feeling as lonely as they can be. And I don't think from human perspective, if you know that, it should be a question, why should we help people? So, yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that's for museums as well.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful since museums are so much set in communities.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you because you said that when you said that when you were first starting, you worked with police psychologists. I assume you were scared at the beginning, but then when you talked about your program, the more you were talking, the more smiled you were. So what are the feelings, what surprised you the most with this program, if I may ask such a rather personal question, and what would be your advice to others who perhaps want to enter in this kind of museum programs?
Thank you for your question. The most surprising for me was that those guys who came, they were ready to us to help them, because if the person won't be the part of rehabilitation, it won't come. They won't be in museum and etc. And as I mentioned in my presentation, they were very positive. They have high amputations, most of them on that first group, but they were so bright, they were so happy, they were so positive. They translated all over the space, and it was amazing for me. It was like, okay, I understand that I'm not so happy like they are, and I'm not living all my full life like they are living now, because they were there, they were on front line, they have seen death, they can die, and they understand that they have a great chance and opportunity. But in other hand, not all it's not so big percent of people who have some problems came, but we try to do it more and more, and more effective, more quality, and etc. Maryna, maybe.
Yeah, in the very beginning, sure, we talk a lot with military psychologists, with police psychologists, and it was surprising for me that not all they said us was helpful. So my recommendation is, first of all, to hear the war-affected person, and because if they can sit and ask about help, you can do more for them than if you do what your psychologist said.
Okay. Yeah. It's very straightforward. I highly appreciate that. But Jolien, going back to the specialist.
No, I can quite relate. I mean, today I heard a lot of people talking about brave spaces. For us as therapists, we often don't use the word safe space, because for people dealing with trauma, they don't know what safety is. So it's like asking them a question that they can't relate to. So I would ask you, make sure you feel most comfortable as you can feel. Or what would be your most happy moment for people dealing with trauma or severe depression? The mind is doing what we call a backdrop. So the mind will first go back to all the moments that we did not feel happy before it can come to happiness.
Part of the healing process.
Yeah, no, it's part of the safety process.
Okay.
Yes, it's more for us as human beings. It's very much more important to know where danger is than where safety is, because danger is in order to survive. So when you ask somebody, what's your most happy moment? For a lot of people dealing with trauma, the mind first goes back to all the moments that you are not happy or not feel safe in order to protect you. Because that's, I think, the most valuable thing that we can learn from trauma. It does do things that we don't like, but it's our body's best attempt to try to keep us as safe as possible. And that's a change of narrative in dealing with trauma, I think.
But I have one more question to you, because we spoke about the participants of your programs, but we have here the staff of the museum, which took on extremely difficult tasks. So, and it's definitely, I've also worked with, and I still work with people working in martyrological museums in Poland, and they are some of the most devoted museum professionals I've ever come across. It is taking toll on the museum staff. So how do we care, and have to remember when we take on such a difficult task? What do we have to remember about the staff and how to care for them?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and two answers come to mind. One of them is, I said it in the presentation, emotional labor. So it's asking, most people who work at places like memorial centers or places where it's Second World, or they have a personal relationality with the story that the museum tells. So it's for them, it's not only stepping into work, but it's stepping into your personal experience and your personal story every day. So the people work around diversity, inclusion, and equality might know this. It's talking about your own scars day in, day out. So I think it's something we should support museum staff in. And we have something called trauma growth. So when people have dealt in the first two phases of their trauma and their healing, trauma growth can come, and it's our deepest wish to grow flowers and beauty from all the pain. And this fuels our work ethos stepping into our day. So those are the colleagues who will pick up the phone at 11 at night, who will run in weekends, who will do everything because there is a second layer of why they do their work. So I think that's also something to keep in mind working in places like this, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Although we do not recommend working round the clock, of course.
Of
for
course.
other reasons.
Yeah.
Before we ask, give our audience a chance to ask you some questions, I have one more question to you. What are you talked about your next steps in terms of redoing the museum, the building, but what are your plans on developing the project? You told me about your plans for a conference. Maybe
Yes,
it's a good opportunity to say a few words about
now
it.
we are collecting our unique experience, because Ukraine is only one European country. We don't talk about Russian Federation, which is in war and have a real experience of people who need help, who have trauma, and we are in searching of new ways of how to work with soldiers, with their families, with children, and how to talk about war, how to work with trauma better. And we have one qualified psychologist in our department of rehabilitation, and we have also a manager who works with
accessibility.
Accessibility, yes, of course. Thank you, Maryna. And now we are thinking about how to make our staff, this team, bigger. We have a lot of problems in Ukraine, except war in the culture sphere. And in the war time, it's very difficult to make deal with finances, with a lot of stuff. But finances is the first, because it's salaries, because it's our opportunities all over the world, in Ukraine, and in our work. And we are planning to, we want to share our experience, and my goal and my plan in 2026 to make a big conference. In my idea, in our concept, it can be three different panels, or maybe 3 days, or something like this. There should be militarians, there should be veterans, there should be volunteers all over Ukraine, and also there should be scientists all over the world. My goal is to make the base for exchanging experience, and of course we should work in not like amateurs, but like professionals, and with professional methodics and etc. And why? Because of this, we need more and more information, more and more experience all over the world, and it's my goal.
And speaking less globally, we also try to implement new methods and new forms to work with war-affected community. Now we working with art therapy mostly and cinema therapy in our museum, and maybe next month we should implement other forms.
Theater, for
Yeah.
example.
Okay, thank you. That sounds very, very interesting, but I want to give our audience a chance. So, yes, please.
You are from the War Museum, right? Do you also reach out to other Ukrainian museums, like art museums or other museums in your country?
Thank you for your questions. Yes, we are working with all our colleagues. We try to now our goal is to make such a some local conference for Kyiv or for Ukrainian museums to share our experience, because now not so much museums have responsibilities and opportunities to make such a program as our museum made, because it was very spontaneous. This idea was born in my head, and Maryna born a new idea to make a unit in our museum. And it's, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think I want. It's the first unit, museum unit, regular in Ukrainian museum, because there is some studies, some sessions, master classes in other museums, but like a regular unit, it's the first precedent, the first example in Ukraine. And for me, like one of top managers, I want to share experience with all our colleagues and to show them that we can do it in such a difficult time. We can do it by our own, by our initiative. And I think in future government, because there is more and more programs in Ukraine which supported by our government to make a rehabilitation program, like strategy of working with such a people. And my goal to make it to be like a to start to be the first museum, like example for others, that it's possible and we can do it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, back in there. Nana, our guest from Georgia.
I already have the microphone.
Hello, I'm from.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I can. That's okay. My name is Hannah, and I have a question for Jolien. So speaking about trauma and post-trauma rehabilitation, so I was thinking. I question myself because I'm Ukrainian also, so I find it a bit different to work with the post-trauma and ongoing trauma when it's every day happening again and again. So I was wondering, because I don't have maybe enough education, so I have practical experience but not scientific part. Is it different? Like other crucial differences between two of the methods? I don't know how to shape this question better.
I think if I understand you correctly, your question would be working trauma informed. Would it be different for a museum just welcoming everybody, or a museum still in war setting and having day-to-day trauma? Would that be your question?
Yes, kind of that,
Sort of.
yes.
Okay, thank you for that question. I think so, yes. One is setting up a way to work, a framework to welcome everybody to feel as safe, there's the word again, as safe, as comfortable as they can be. And there might be people dealing with war trauma, but having other experiences of trauma as well. What we see when museums are tuning into traumatic events that are still going on, people stepping into that museums with their personal story are in a different phase of their own trauma healing. And we can say that trauma healing mostly has 3 phases. And when a person is in a personal trauma healing phase coming into phase 3, he has his own ability to hold himself while meeting triggers. For somebody who is still in a traumatic event and still going on, is in phase 1 or 2. And that's taking different supports from what a person might need. So I would advise, as you are doing the most beautiful example, to welcoming in mental health professionals who have a background as a trauma therapist to work on the ground in your museum. While as you are a museum, like I work with the Van Gogh Museum or Museum of the Mind, they have a personal story that might relate to trauma, but is not really active in the day-to-day practice. You would see how can we welcome everybody and train our visiting facing staff in a way that is trauma informed, but is also supporting for people dealing with a lot of stress or are coming from burnout or depression, just a minority who have an activated stress system. So that's quite a different approach than really welcoming people who are in the first or second phase or of trauma healing. Yes. Is that answering your question? Thank you so much.
Thank you for this clarification. And sorry, because I see the lights and I don't see all the audience. So we're back to Nana.
I'm Nana, I'm from Georgia. First part of my question, maybe it's not question, but it's a reaction of on the presentation of Ukrainian friends. I can't stop to applaud you as a nation because you are so strong. You said that you are the only country in Europe who now are under the war, but actually Georgia is also in the war with Russia. We don't have this tie. I can't compare, of course. It is not an open war with Russia, but we have this kind of hybrid war. And we had this open war twice. One was in 1993, another one was in 2008. And these traumas are also open until now. And during the last year, we have everyday demonstration and ongoing traumas as well. So it's, and no one decided to make something to help people in museums. That's why I'm really applauding you. I'm sorry. And the question is to the Jolien, is it your name? Jolien. Our society is split into parts now. One is in the active protest every day, and another one somehow started to hide themselves, maybe to save themselves from the trauma, I don't know. And people are thinking that it is not correct because all are human, all have some limit maybe, is it correct? But the process is ongoing. So the pressure from Russia, which is through our pro-Russian government, is every day ongoing. And what in such a situation we have to do? Because I'm a one who is standing on the demonstrations every day, and a lot of friends of mine are just hiding. I understand that all we are human, and now you can feel how I am tired. But if everyone will hide from traumas, so what will happen then? When the process is ongoing, the question is, how to deal with this? To stay in the protest and to stay in the war, and also to think about your mental health and yeah. Thank you. And sorry for my emotions.
No. May I start with applauding your courage for standing up and asking this question and sharing your story. So thank you for that. And I'm so sorry for the situation you're in, your country's in, your friends, your family, your loved ones, for you as well, for everybody here affected. And it's a big question to ask. What can we do? And you are so right that everybody responds in situations like this in various ways. We all know this from people who not been affected with war, but when challenging moments come up, people just act differently. And there's finding this balance in what do I need to hold myself, and how can I still be in contact with the other, not only to support the other person, but also to support you, because the contact with others will eventually support you. If I understand your question correct, what can we do? I see people hide and I'm on the street. What can I do? What we know from trauma is that it might not make us feel our boundaries as much as we should when we feel safe. So when in traumatic events, we might do things that we could never imagine at the moment that we felt safe and we were safe. The moment that insecurity comes on, when fundamentally our lives are in danger, we are capable of doing things that we could never imagine. So it's also something we cannot discuss coming up into war. Should we go on the streets with everybody? Should we do this or should we do that? It's not like we can agree to common sense on how to react. So in that moment, everybody will respond in its own way, again, because that is what our body is doing at its best attempt to keep you as safe as possible. So I can't solve your problem. I'm so sorry. I wish I could. That's our common humanity. What we feel here in the space is our compassion, that we all want to lift that suffering that you all endure. The only thing that I would say is the moment that I want to come back to what I said. I lost it. Let me see if I can find it again. Yes, it's there. To keep reminding that the choices that you make are your way to keep you protected. And this is also for the other person who withdraws. It's their action in their body to keeping them safe. And I think it might be helpful for people enduring trauma in the present moment to keep remind that that is what you both have in common. It has a different outcome, but your intention has the same common ground. It's your best way body's attempt to keep you safe. And to be aware of that, we can relate to that. And that this is our entrance to keep meeting the other person. This is the only thing I can offer you in this moment. Yes.
And
thank you.
I would like to add a few words to it, as much as I don't know what I can tell you, Nana, except for that I admire what you've been doing for more than 300 consecutive days standing in the street. Just imagine that. I know what we all can do as we are here, as the European Museums community, American Museum community, show moral support. You know, in 22, when Ukrainian refugees fled towards the Polish border, we surprised ourselves as a society by accepting everyone in our homes, not in refugee camps, but at our homes. And I think we were surprised ourselves why that happened. That happened because we did something that no one did for us in 1939. Of course, none of us was alive back then, almost none of us at this point, but this is post-trauma. This is something that we have deep inside. So we just did something that we felt was the right thing to do. And for all of us here, we can show moral support by sharing the stories from Georgia, by following the news, by telling other people what's going on there, and by making moral pressure on others that this is another country that is suffering, and we should just put our strengths together to try to help you. Okay, we have time for one or two more questions, I guess. Anyone? Okay, so thank you very much for what you shared. It's been extremely powerful and very, very needed, I think. We are closing our day one, which was very diverse, very busy, and I think gave us a lot for further reflection that we will continue. I think what I will remember the most is still this feeling needed concept, not only for those veterans, but I think for all of us, that we wouldn't be in this line of work that we are if we didn't have this satisfaction of feeling needed with what we do, and hopefully it stays that way.